This is the account of Terah. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran, and Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans, in the land of his birth. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren. She had no children. Terah took his son Abraham, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. Although there is no scriptural reference to Job during this period of time, there is compelling evidence to believe that an important historical figure named Job should be included here among the ancients. His home is in the land of Uz, which is probably in the northern Abraham desert, in a territory which will come to be known as Edom or Idumea. Job is unusually blessed with prosperity and holds his family very dear to him. Above all things, Job is a righteous man, esteemed among his peers and even those who serve him. However, disaster strikes Job when all his flocks, herds, and possessions are taken from him through a series of adversities. Even worse, all his children are killed, and he himself is stricken with a terrible, painful disease. Although he questions why such disaster should beset him, Job nevertheless maintains his faith in God. As a result, his wealth is restored to double its original worth. More children are born to him, and he dies a happy man. The story of his great faith and of his apparently successful struggle with the reason for his suffering will be handed down over the generations to come. Several centuries later, at a time when a whole nation will be struggling with the problem of suffering, Job's life will become the basis for a literary masterpiece dealing with suffering and the issue of its causes. Little does this humble man know how his very personal adversity will be a source of comfort to multitudes of fellow sufferers for centuries to come. That fact alone might well have something to do with why he is called upon to experience such adversity. The book of Job will be presented later at the time of its writing. With the life of Abram, a new chapter in the history of God's dealings with mankind begins. God's presence in Abram's life does not appear to be based upon any special meritorious qualities that Abram himself might possess, but simply because God chooses him as the man through whom he will bless all of mankind. Abram lives at a time when in the western part of the Fertile Crescent, the Egyptian Empire is in its golden age during the 12th dynasty. In the eastern part of the crescent, the Sumerians have controlled the area from their capital at Ur. Somewhere around 1950 BC, however, the Sumerians are overthrown by the Elamites, who come from east of the Tigris River. The Elamite invasion causes such confusion and turmoil in this once stable area that hordes of people from the Arabian desert are drawn into the more fertile area. These descendants of Ham from the west, or Amorites as they are known, decisively take over the land and establish various capitals, the most notable of which is at Marai on the northern Euphrates River. This Amorite culture will flourish until about 1700 BC, when it will be overrun by King Hammurabi of the Babylonians, who is remembered principally because of the code of laws which bears his name. It is this Amorite culture with which Abram is most closely associated while in Haran. However, Abram himself is an Armenian and a descendant of Shem. Although the details are sketchy, it appears that Abram belongs to a rootless, unsettled, and semi-nomadic people who wander about among more settled people in search of food and water for the flocks which they tend. As the Genesis record continues, Abram and his clan will be seen wandering throughout Canaan in this very fashion. The life of Abram, however, is more than a historical narrative about a Semitic Armenian wandering through Canaan. It is a life which will later be praised as an outstanding example of faith in God. With his father Terah now dead and himself middle-aged, Abram is called by God to leave his homeland, his tribe, and his father's family in order to journey 300 miles to a land about which he knows very little. Once Abram arrives in the land, God promises Abram that he will give the land not to Abram, but to his offspring. And this is promised despite the fact that the land is already occupied by the Canaanites. Yet Abraham believes God's promise and continually worships God. As the Genesis record continues, it appears that God had already called Abram at an earlier time, which other scripture indicates had taken place when Abram was still in his former homeland. But here God reaffirms the call and covenants a sevenfold promise both to Abram and through him to all peoples of the world. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abram left as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree, to Moreh at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord, and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. having seen that Abraham is a man of great faith who trusted God enough to move to an unknown land. It comes as somewhat of a disappointment to learn that Abram can also be a man of great moral weakness. This insight comes out of an incident which takes place in Egypt, where Abram will take his family because of a famine in Canaan. Even at 65 years of age, Abram's wife, Sarai, is less than middle-aged and still beautiful, especially in the eyes of the Egyptians, who would be attracted by Sarai's presumably fair complexion. Fear that the Egyptian men would be attracted enough by her beauty to kill him in order to have Sarai, Abram asked Sarai to represent herself as his sister, if necessary. Sarai is in fact a half-sister to Abram, since both have the same father, but asking Sarai to join him in a deception which could result in a sacrifice of her honor is clearly an indication of weakness in Abram's character, and Abram's failure to trust God to deliver him out of any trouble that might result from his being completely truthful shows that Abram's faith is still a matter of personal struggle. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while, because the famine was severe. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you." When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that she was a very beautiful woman, and when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, men servants and maidservants, and camels. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abram. "What have you done to me?" he said. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go." Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had.